Welcome to Mondays with Coach Rice. It's a brand new week, the sun's shining bright. A chance to cast your net, step into the light. Life's full of challenges, it's a winding stream. But with Coach Rice, you'll find your dream.
Morning, happy Monday to you. I am so grateful to be back with you guys this Monday morning. I just want to welcome you to Casting the Net with Coach Rice, where wisdom, faith, and transformation intersect. I am your host, Coach Rice, your professional certified mental health life coach, trained counselor, speaker, and mentor. Remember, this podcast is designed to cast a wide net of inspiration, encouragement, and practical tools to help you thrive in every area of your life. We care about your mental health. I just want to welcome my special guest today. Her name is Carolyn Boras. She is a veteran educator of 45 years, a RTT practitioner, and certified hypnotherapist coach. I am so grateful to have you, Carolyn. Tell us, first of all, where are you from, and what inspired you to where are you from? What is a RTT practitioner, and what inspired you to go into this field?
Oh, thank you for asking. Thank you for asking me on the podcast, and thank you for asking me that really important question. In order to answer, I need to go back and explain how I actually got here in the first place.
Absolutely.
To this point in my life. So I've been in education for 45 years. Now, when I was back, well, and I'm originally from Canada, and so while I was in Canada, I had already been teaching about 25 years by then. But I was living in an expensive part of Canada. And it was so expensive that what was going on in my personal life was that I couldn't save money. I couldn't afford to travel anywhere or go anywhere. I was driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic with 250,000 kilometers on it, and I was just praying that I could get another 15 years out of it because I just didn't have the money to buy another car. And as I said, where I was living was really expensive. So that's what was happening in my personal life. I mean, I didn't have a life, basically. What was going on in my professional life was that it didn't really matter what school I was at. Whenever I walked into a staff room, the only conversation that I could ever hear happened to be teachers talking about how many years, months, weeks, and days they had left until retirement. And some of these people had 15 years before retirement. And I was shocked that there seemed to be no other conversations happening. And around this point in my life, I was getting ready to turn 50.
Okay.
Now, 50 was at that time like a really big number. It was a really big number. And I thought, so if I am in this profession for another 15 years until I retire, how is it that I'm going to be able to stand listening to another 15 years of this misery of going into the classroom and nobody's happy and everybody just wants out, but people are stuck there for lots and lots of different reasons. So I kind of didn't know what I was going to do in order to help me get to 65.
Okay.
But around this time, another colleague of mine mentioned the fact that she was going to be going to Egypt to teach. And this was in October. And I said, well, what do you mean? It's October. It's not the end of the school year. What do you mean you're going to Egypt? Well, she was talking about going to Egypt to become an international educator. I had never heard about the world of international education. I mean, this was like 20 years ago. How would I have known about that? And so, well, this is interesting. So I followed her progress that year, and she was having way more fun than I was. She got to travel and she was making way more money than I was, and she was having great professional opportunities. So I thought, I need to check into this. So anyhow, fast forward, I did my first gig, international teaching, when I was 50. And, you know, because that was a whole new chapter of my life, I thought, well, this is a new chapter. I think I need to recreate myself now because this is not who I was. I'm now an international educator. So I decided that my 50s were going to be my decade of adventure because there I was. I went to Singapore. I'd never even been to Asia before. And so my 50s were so great. I had travel adventures. I had opportunities professionally that I never would have had I stayed at home. So, you know, then I started to approach my 60s and I thought, okay, 60 is an even bigger number. Now, what do you do when you're facing 60? And I decided that my 60s were going to be my decade of even more adventures. So I had even more adventures, travel and work opportunities. And I just turned 70 almost a year ago. And that's now like such a huge number. And I thought, well, now what on earth could 70s be? So I decided that my 70s were going to be my decade of my second brilliant career, this one that I'm doing now. My 80s are going to be my Yoda years, and my 90s, I don't know. I haven't decided what that decade's going to be yet. But the way I got into doing RTT, or rapid transformational therapy, is that 5 years ago I had a health scare, and I was one of the fortunate ones who was given a second chance. And I know that not everybody gets a second chance. I know that. So I was grappling with, what do I do to honor this second chance that I've been given? Because I have to do something with this. I have to honor it in some way. So while I was grappling with that, I discovered RTT, or rapid transformational therapy, and I'd already had hypnotherapy myself, you know, years before. I'd already experienced NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, so I had this interest in how the brain and the mind works anyhow. So I got the training, and then when I realized I had such a powerful tool in my hands, I thought, well, what do I do with this now? And then it came to me that the way I could honor the second chance at life I was given would be to use this tool to help my colleagues. Because in the last 45 years of being in education, I've seen what stress has done to my colleagues. And teachers and education are in absolute crisis right now. And so doing this work is how I can give back, and how I can help my colleagues, and how I can honor this second chance that I was given. That's how I ended up doing this now.
And so you located in Asia, correct?
Yes, I've been in Asia for the last 20 years since I've been international.
Wow.
Yeah, and I knew when I left Canada I was never going back because, you know, for lots of reasons.
Right.
But the thing is, you know, I left because it was easy for me to pick up and move halfway around the world to change
Okay.
my circumstances. But I know that is not doable for everybody. I mean, let's face it, you know, so with the work that I do, this is how people can improve their situation.
Okay.
Because, you know, I have to say, 45 years ago, when I first started in teaching, there were obviously challenges with kids, with parents, with administrators, but there were never the challenges that teachers are facing now. I've got to be totally honest and transparent about that, because the things that teachers are facing now, it's absolutely shocking. Now, having said that, I had to navigate the challenges when I had them, but there wasn't the help available 30, 35, 40 years ago that there is now. I mean, we didn't have the internet back then where information was at your fingertips. So I had to navigate those challenges myself. And I am telling you that it's not easy having to do it yourself. And so the message I really want to get out there to people, not only teachers, but because let's face it, teachers are not the only, teachers have not cornered the market on stress. Okay. I
Right.
mean, you could be a bus driver or a pastry chef.
Right.
I mean, everybody's experienced
Everybody
stress, right?
experiencing it, yes.
Everybody's experienced it. But the important message, I think, is that help is available. Help is available. You don't need to try to navigate this yourself, because it's too overwhelming.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you. So when I have heard, me knowing some teachers, I've, the, all of them say the same thing, that it's stressful. It's
Yeah.
overwhelming. They can't wait till the year is up,
Yeah,
wondering
Yeah.
if they're going to return
yeah,
the next year.
absolutely.
What is it about this? Because I'm not a teacher. What is it about? What is it this? Is it the students? Is it the work? Is it the politics? What is it that causes so much of this stress?
It is everything, all of that piled together. It is the lack of time, because you're always getting more put on your plate, and yet nothing's taken away. So you have more to do in less time. So there's lack of time. The curriculum seems to be constantly changing. So you no sooner get your head wrapped around what you have to do, and then, oh, we're getting a new curriculum. Well, we haven't even finished, exploring the one we got last year, for example. So there's a lack of time, there's lack of resources, there's lack of support from administrators, from colleagues, from parents. It's just shocking what parents can do these days that they never did before. It's shocking behavior from students. It's lack of support from government. It's lack of support from the media. I mean, when I was back in Canada, where I was, there was a very strong teachers union, and the teachers and the government were constantly at loggerheads. And can't tell you how many times I went out on strike. And of course, you never get that money back, the money that you've lost when you're on strike. And so it was, people, and I say that generally, that's a loose term, but one of the problems is when teachers are expressing their dissatisfaction with the way things are, good meaning friends and relatives who are not teachers say, well, what's the matter with you? You get all of those holidays. It's not about the holidays. Holidays have got nothing to do with it. I mean, for now, let me step back for a minute and say, so teachers who have kids, their own children, okay, it's a job where your holidays and your kids' holidays can match up, so that makes it easier in terms of parenting. Yeah, okay, fine. But when the general public says, well, you have so much in holidays, when teachers are on holiday, they are using that time to recover from what has just gone on. They're not using the 3 to 4 to 6 weeks to go to Bermuda, because number one, they don't have the money to do it, And that's not what teachers do on their holidays. So often teachers have to take professional development to keep their accreditation up. That's what they're doing. Or they, as soon as they finish and have maybe a few days to kind of recuperate, then they're getting materials ready for the coming year. So it's not like it's free time. And so many teachers, when it comes to the weekend, some teachers are spending all Saturday and Sunday just recuperate in bed. Like some teachers can't even get up because it's just been so much, and it's constant. As soon as the school day starts, you hit the ground running. You don't ease into this job whatsoever. And the thing is, when you are on the outside looking in, you think, not you, but the universal you, as it were, if you're teaching little kids, oh, well, why is the job so hard? I mean, you're with little kids. You get to play all day. Well, it's not like having your own kids and where you can play with them,
Right.
and then you don't have to play with them, and then you can play with them. It's not like that. You have like 30 little human beings who are vying for your attention
goodness gracious.
the entire day. And so many teachers, not only do they not get a tea break because there's always something happening at recess. How many teachers will tell you at the end of the day they never even had a chance to go to the bathroom all day
Oh, that is
because
horrible.
they got kids, because there's one crisis after another. And one of, I have to say, like, when you're on the outside looking in, sorry, I've got so many things coming out of my brain that I want to share with you. But it's like the general public thinks that it knows what it's like to be a teacher because everybody's been to school. So everybody thinks they know what's going on in the classroom.
That's true.
So they think they can tell you what to do. And so when people used to try to tell me what to do, I'd say, stand in line behind all the other people who want to tell me what to do. Because that idea is as ridiculous as if I said, I know how to do an appendectomy and I'm going to tell the doctor how to do it because I've sat in the doctor's office so many times over the last 70 years. So why are you trying to tell me how to teach and what I should be doing? But everybody's got an opinion on it. And when in my second year, when I was in, was it my second year? Oh, maybe it was my first year. I don't know. Early on, when I was in Singapore, I was teaching kindergarten at the time. I had the worst behaved kids I'd ever had in 25 years teaching. And they were 5-year-olds. And you think 5-year-olds, well, they're only 5, they're so cute. Yeah, they're cute. However, and everything I tried out of my teacher toolbox of classroom management, none of that worked. And I thought, what is going on here? What is going on? And so anyhow, my big win that year was by the end of the year, those kids could walk down the hallway quietly in a straight line and nobody ran away. That's what I got accomplished that year.
Wow.
Because the behavior was so off the wall. But if I told that to any administrator, they would have thought that I was a complete failure.
Oh man, that's sad.
So, and so the people out there, the ones who control the purse strings, those who have never been in a classroom, but they're the ones who are going to tell you what to do because they talk about policy and all this other stuff. They don't understand that a grade 1 teacher's big wins for the day might be the fact that all of her kids got to the bathroom and back without getting lost.
Wow.
That's a big, or nobody threw up that day. That's a huge win. And yet, if you're out there, you don't see, like, you don't understand how can that be a win? Because, like, what did you teach? Well, you know what? Here's the thing. if you've got classroom management behaviors that are happening, there's not going to be any A's for Apple, because until the classroom management and the behavior and until the children are socially functioning and managing, there can't be any A's for Apple because there are too many other fires
That
happening.
is true. That is so
You
true.
know, you've got to have a foundation. But I'm telling you, the problems that these kids are coming to school with now, it's like, how many more hats do teachers have to wear? A psychologist, psychiatrist, a sociologist, a nutritionist, a sleep,
A
it
babysitter.
just goes on. Yeah, exactly. It just goes on and on. And some days you really feel like the only thing you did was babysitting, because, you know, and I have to say that what is absolutely heartbreaking about, and what leaves me speechless about what is happening in education, is that I've been following some teacher Facebook groups. And recently, one teacher reported that she had found her tree. And a few other people talked about, well, they found their tree. And when I asked what that was, I was told that some people are in such crisis that they have found a tree that they're going to drive into on their way home from work to incapacitate themselves enough so that they don't have to go back to work.
Oh,
But
that
they
is
don't
so
want
sad.
incapacitated too much, but just enough so they don't have to go back to work. And another teacher who was in that thread, who was from the UK, said, well, in the UK, we don't call it finding a tree, we call it finding a wall or finding a bridge.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And and I was just left, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but I was left speechless. And how can my profession, and this is a rhetorical question, but how can my profession have come to this? And so if teachers are feeling like that, or if they're driving to school and yet they can't get themselves out of the car to walk into the building, or they're in class and they run out of class in the middle of class to go into the bathroom and cry. I mean, how much teaching and learning is happening in the classroom? I mean, you've got to ask.
That's true. You really have to.
And so I think, you know, the thing is, for far too long, we as educators have been waiting for out there, like the policymakers, to fix things in education. But you know what? They're not going to fix things because they don't understand what's wrong. They don't understand. And so they are not going to fix the things that need to be fixed. It has to come from a grassroots level. It has to come from us.
Yes.
We have to take charge of our own mental health. We have to take charge of our own circumstances. And you know what, administrators think that when they're talking about teacher well-being, they tend to think that teacher well-being will be satisfied by once a month, for example, once a month, instead of having a staff meeting, they get teachers a massage. That's not that's not supporting teacher well-being. Like, what is the well-being in your school or in your school district? What's the policy on teacher well-being? Because, you know, a classroom is like, when you're a teacher, you're the CEO of your little business, your little
Right.
organization. And the organization is only as good as the people at the top. And, you know, water runs
Yes.
downhill. So if the person at the top is in crisis, well, that's going to trickle down to the kids in the classroom. The teaching and the learning is going to be what? What is actually going to happen? And so the healing, the help, we have to take charge of our own situation. And my question is, if we don't do something about it, what is the cost of not? What is the
Right.
cost of not taking care of yourself. What is the cost to your physical, mental, and emotional health? What is the cost to your family, to your friends, to your loved ones, and to your colleagues? What is the cost of not helping yourself?
It's a
And
huge cost.
it's a huge cost. And it doesn't mean you have to pick up and move halfway around the world like I did. It doesn't mean that. I think when we are down in the depths of despair, all we can see is all of that muck that's around us, and we think our whole entire life is a mess and nothing's working, and because we're so exhausted and frustrated and overwhelmed, and we've come to the point of feeling helpless, we don't know what to do because we think there's nothing that can be done. Well, in actual fact, some people you don't need to upend your whole life necessarily. Sometimes you just need to make a small change. Maybe you need to just change grade level, or maybe you need to change to a different school, or maybe you need to move across the city to a different school district, if that's possible. Or maybe you need to move across the province or the state, if that's possible. Or maybe you can, if that's possible, move across the country. Or maybe you move across to the other side of the world. Or maybe it is time to really and truly consider changing professions. But you don't have to throw everything out all at once, because that's really overwhelming, and you just end up feeling stuck and helpless. So it's looking at the little changes that you could possibly make. Maybe a big change is, you know what, taking your well-being, making that a priority, and making sure you drink enough water during the day and have your water bottle on your desk. Maybe that's enough to kind of shift things. Or maybe making a point of once a week, if that's possible, leaving school right, like as soon as the bell rings, and you go and you have a walk outside. I mean, it's finding the small little things that you can do, and it's the small little things that add up over a period of time to big changes, you know?
Yeah, that and you know, enough and not and they don't there's not enough talk about this, because we, as an outsider looking in, it does, when I was in school, teachers didn't, it looked easy. They made it look easy. And even though they were going through whatever they were dealing with, right? And
Yep.
the stress of it, the lack of support, like
Yep.
that you mentioned. What's the difference between international and over here? What are some of the differences in the educational system that's not happening in the United States?
I think the educational system will depend on what school in what country you go to. So when I was in Singapore, for example, we followed the IB, the International Baccalaureate curriculum, and yet other international schools did the Cambridge curriculum, and some international schools followed curriculum from New Zealand or from Australia. So it depends on the country, and it depends on the school in the country that
Okay.
you get hired to. But because I was in private schools, and okay, so they were for-profit schools. So in a sense, they were similar to the schools back home in that the tuition was so that the school owners could, make profit, right? So you couldn't just willy-nilly go out and buy resources, because everything, they had to account for the money. But if you are in a school that is a not-for-profit school, then the money they get from tuition, for example, that gets put back into the school, into salaries, into resources. And so you have a lot more flexibility, right?
Okay.
So I was given teaching opportunities that I was not given back home simply because of government funding. So, for example, I was a music specialist, which in and of itself back then was an anomaly because to have art specialists, that's whoa, you know. And so when I went overseas, I was given a chance then to start a drama program. Well, how many primary drama specialists are there back home? There aren't any because teachers are expected to teach everything. Whereas in the international schools, and again, it depends on the school and the country, there are specialists for all of these jobs
Oh,
because
okay.
parents are paying big money. So they want their kids to have all of these opportunities. So arts programs are important. Physical education programs are important. And there are lots and lots, the extracurricular programs after school, that's an expectation. And so the extracurricular programs are huge. So there's all of that, right? So resources and because in the international schools that I was at, because there were specialists for PE, art, music, computer, STEM programs, or robotics. What others? What others were there? French or Mandarin or Spanish. So there were specialists for these teachers. So when your class went to that specialist teacher, then as a classroom teacher, you had that as a work period. So now, mind you, those work periods were taken up with team meetings and parent meetings and so on and so
Okay.
forth. But, these teachers had 8 to 10 work periods per week. Well, you ask how many teachers get 8 to 10 prep periods a week. When I left where I was teaching in Canada, we had one work period per week. And so, with all these, so that's another huge difference, right? So as I say, I was given so many opportunities in my career that I would never have had back home,
Oh, okay.
which was like really great. And then, well, this is not related to work, but man, I'm telling you, when you go international, you've got travel opportunities. It's like,
That
whoa,
sounds
you know,
amazing. Yeah.
I mean, it was great. I mean, being in Asia, we're so close to everything. Some of the young kid teachers when we were in Singapore, they'd fly off to Bangkok for a weekend of shopping because it was just so close and it was so cheap.
Yeah.
So those kinds of experiences just really open your eyes. Plus, another difference is the school that I was at. We had over 70 different nationalities. So it was so wonderful interacting with kids from all over the world who, because of who their parents were, they had had travel opportunities. So the conversations that you could have with these kids, because they'd had so many experiences, and it was so engaging. It was so rich.
Nice.
Whereas, you know, where I was teaching back in Canada, I was in the largest school district in the province, but district in the province, but it had the smallest amount of government funding.
Oh,
And
goodness.
the school that I was in was the worst school in the school district. And so there were these kids who were so needy, who came from such abysmal backgrounds. I mean, at one point in time, I was teaching kindergarten. I had kids who were coming to kindergarten. They'd never held a pencil before. And so they couldn't, when I was dotting the letters, I'll never forget this. I was dotting the letters of this one kid's name, and he was looking at what I was doing. He was spellbound. And he said, "How does that pencil do that?"
Oh,
Like, oh my God. And so then I had a parent volunteer who, you know, a little bit later on, she was doing the same thing on his artwork so he could, you know, try to figure out how to trace it. And he said to her, he said, wow, that pencil can do it too. And it's like, wow. I mean, heartbreaking,
Yeah,
you know,
that is heartbreaking.
totally heartbreaking. And, you know, so we had something called Welfare Wednesday. Every Wednesday, the welfare check would come in, and some of those kids, they wouldn't have eaten since Monday.
Oh,
So
that is sad.
it's sad. And so, I mean, I went from that to totally the other end, totally the other end of the spectrum, going, whoa, these kids are 5 years old. They can tell you faster than an adult what happens when you're at the airport and you have to go through airport security. They can tell you everything that you can do and cannot do because they've been through it, they've traveled it so much. And I'm going, wow, these kids have had experiences. And these other kids that I keep have had experiences too, but not the
Different,
same
very
experiences.
different. So
Very different.
how do you help? What are some of the things you do to help the teachers that come to you who are stressed?
Well, one of the way things, what happens is when you contact me, what we first do is we have a discovery call, a chat, where you tell me what is going on. You know, I ask questions and we see if we're a good fit for each other.
Okay.
Right? And I determine in that conversation whether I can help you or not, because I cannot do hypnosis. I can't have you as a client if you are schizophrenic, if you are borderline personality disorder, if you are psychotic, if you're epileptic. I just can't.
Okay.
Right? And so I have to make that determination. If we decide that we are a good fit, then we have a 1-hour intake call where I get detailed information on what is the problem, what is the issue that you would like resolved. I send the client a form to fill out, and you've probably experienced this yourself. So when the client fills out the form, lots of times they have a shopping list, like they want 10 things resolved, right? And so in the intake call, we have to determine what is the most pressing issue. Out of all of these things, what is your priority? So once we determine the priority, then I have to talk about, well, for example, if you come to me with, say, a fear of public speaking, for example, well, what are the symptoms of that? How do you know
Right.
you're experiencing of, you know, what are the triggers? What are your habits? And then I get some information, some background information on family, right? Because that's always
Yes,
important.
that's always important.
And then, yeah, always important. The really important question that is always asked is, if I had a magic wand and I could give you anything that you want, what is it that you would want? And once they determine what it is we want, then we do the deep dive and then we go into that in detail. Well, if you had this confidence, for example, in, I don't know, in whatever situation, what would you look like? Like, how would
How
I
would
know
you
that
know
this
if
is
you landed
confident?
in that area, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. What would you look like? What would your face look like? Where would your shoulders be? What would your voice sound like? Um, what would the thoughts be going on in your head now? Would you be saying, yeah, I'm really good at this. I really know how to teach phonics or whatever it is. I really can stand up in front of a staff meeting and express my views, you know, whatever. And then what would other people be saying about you? Hey, I've noticed you've really got a handle on classroom management. Can you help me? So going into that in as much detail as possible, because as you know, unless you can future pace, you stay stuck. Because if you can't see your future, then you're right here. You stay here. So it's really important to get a really clear picture. What is it that you want?
Yeah,
And
I
so
use that
then,
in my visualization exercise.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. And so then once we have the intake form, that or the intake, that's about an hour. Then the actual RTT, rapid transformational therapy session, takes about 1.5 to 2 hours.
Wow.
Because yeah, we go into hypnosis and then we regress to 3, maybe 4 scenes. Lots of times those scenes, the client goes back to childhood, but not all the time. Not all the time, right? And then once we find out where that issue occurred and why it occurred, and what is the limiting belief that you've developed as a result of this thing happening, then we can go through with our specialized tools and techniques. Then we can go through and we can flip that limiting belief and turn it into a belief that serves you.
Okay.
Because, the thing about limiting beliefs, and you probably found this in your work as well, is that so many of us, we don't even know the limiting beliefs that we have that are holding us back. We just know that we are stuck.
Yes.
We keep attracting the same relationships. We're in the same dead end jobs. We're in the same financial mess. We just can't seem to figure out how to move ahead. But if we think of limiting beliefs like an anchor, we know that an anchor, as it relates to a boat, an anchor is underneath the surface of the water. We can't see the anchor. We just know it's there because
Right.
the boat is not moving.
Great
But if
analogy.
we can, yeah. But if we can disconnect the chain that is holding the anchor to the boat, then the boat is able to move. Well, similarly, like our limiting beliefs are in our subconscious and they're keeping us there. And so if we can cut that chain that is keeping us anchored, then we're free to fly. And then we start remembering our superpowers. Because as long as we're in the depths of despair, we've forgotten that, oh, I got my PhD degree. I just bought my first house. I just got married. I had my first baby. I sold my first book. We've forgotten all of our
We
accomplishments,
lose the
right?
creativity as well. Yes.
That's exactly right, because we're just so down there, right? And so in the RTT session, then we find out what that limiting belief is and how you came to acquire it. So we flip that belief into one that will help move you forward. And then once the session is done, then the client gets a 15 to 20 minute bespoke recording that they must listen to for a minimum of 21 days, because now we're having to build new neural pathways, right? And so this recording is so vital, because the recording contains the words that the client told us in the intake, what it is that they want their future to be.
Okay.
Well, now that we've cut the thing that is holding you back, now you start listening to that recording that's got all of your language in it. And go, oh yeah, this is what I said. This, I can be this. I can be this. This is what I'm going to do.
Right.
So the thing about doing this kind of work is that people can change in 3 different ways as a result of the session. Not a lot. People can experience immediate change. I mean, we all want the issue to change right away, right?
Right.
Now, sometimes in a session, it's so interesting to see that as a client releases whatever it is they need to release, you can sometimes see them go through physical changes. All of a sudden they start to sit up and they start to smile and their eyes start to look, but it's remarkable. So change can be immediate, change can be cumulative, so that every day you see a little bit of change and progress happening.
Yes.
Then change can also be retroactive, which means, you might be going along for, I don't know, a period of time and saying, Carolyn, this just has not worked. And then one day you wake up and you go, when did I start to feel happier? Because I don't know when that happened, but I'm starting to feel, seems as though things are starting to improve. Well, when did that happen? So,
Yeah, it depends on how you process it. Yes.
yeah, exactly right. But it's what's so interesting is that when people come to you with their issue, it really boils down to, there are three different issues that people have. They either think they're not enough, they're not tall enough, smart enough, rich enough, young enough, educated, whatever. So they feel that they're not enough, or they feel as though they can't connect because they're so different, there's no way that they can connect. Or they feel that what they want, they can't get. It's not available to them
Right.
for,
They
whatever
feel
reason.
helpless in that situation. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so interesting that the details might be different, but the core issues
Yes.
are one of those three things, right? And the other thing is, how many of us have the I'm not enough
Oh,
belief?
goodness gracious. Yes.
Whether you might have all the confidence in the world when you're playing golf, but when it comes to baking, forget it. Or when
Right.
it comes to dating or whatever, right? I mean, so anyhow, I think that because I've been an educator, I know what teachers are dealing with, and I've seen the repercussions of that. That my goal is to really help as many teachers as possible, because I think, if I could help one teacher in her classroom, that would be like dropping a pebble in the water,
Yes.
the ripples, because then she would deal with the kids in a different way. They'd be happier. They'd go home. They interact with their parents a little bit differently. The
Yeah, it's
parents
a
interact
ripple
with the
effect.
community a little, But the thing is, it's not good enough to just drop. I'd like to drop a huge boulder
Awesome.
that where the ripples are exponentially, like 10 times, I don't know, exponentially, they're huge.
Yes.
Because that's how much help is needed out there. It's just, teachers just don't need to do this by themselves. They
Yes.
don't.
And we all as coaches and mental health therapists and doctors and all of these, we all have the same heart to reach as many people as possible.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
advice, what's the one advice that you would give teachers right now?
Oh, man. Wow. I would, no.
It's hard
What
to
I-
pick one, but
Yeah, what I would want to say is stop, take a step back, and breathe, is what I'd really like to say. Because with all of this, it gets to be so much that you forget to breathe, especially when you haven't had a cup of coffee, or you haven't been able to go to the bathroom, or you haven't been able to have lunch. You know what I went, okay, now that I think of, this is what I've had to do on occasion. I had to, a few times, just so that I had a minute to myself, I would turn the lights off in my room and I'd lock the door, and I would find a place in the classroom where if anybody was walking down the hallway, they wouldn't see that I was in the room.
just to have
So
that
that
moment.
Just so that I could have a moment. And, even if in between classes, while you're waiting for the next class to come, or while you're waiting for your kids to come in, if you could just do a few stretches, go into the bathroom stall, do a few stretches, do some breathing. Yeah, but take a breath. And oh my God, at the end of the day, because the other thing that teachers struggle with is, how do you have that work-life balance? Because the teacher stress follows you home. You can't get rid of it. So teachers are suffering from the Sunday night scaries. They can't sleep Sunday night because they're thinking of everything
What
that has
they
to
have
be
to do
done.
the next day, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so now, what did I start to tell? So the thing is, if before you walk out of your classroom at the end of the day, if you can just shake off all of that stress, so you're not carrying it down the hallway with you, or just brush it off, or do
Right.
it when you're in the car, or before you step into your house, just do the shake off or the brush off, so you're not taking that into the classroom. Or as soon as you go into your house, like, I don't know, the first thing I would do is I'd run into the bedroom and I'd take off my school clothes, because those school clothes are like your uniform. They're carrying all of the stress of the day. Get rid of that stuff and then breathe.
Okay.
But I one of the things, the best piece of advice that I was given as a very young teacher was from the best principal I ever had. And I have to say, in 45 years teaching, I've only had one really fantastic principal. And he said to me, Carolyn, always remember, you do not work for a principal. And I was thinking to myself, what are you talking about? He said, a principal works for you. I thought that was very like, what do you mean I
That's
don't work for a
definitely a
principal?
huge shift.
He said, it's the principal's job to do all the behind the scenes stuff, the parents and the media and the resources, so that you can do your job. You're the frontline worker. And I have to say, I have said that to a few principals over the last 45 years. They did not take kindly to it, but they didn't come into my classroom again after that to bother me. Because I don't work for you. It's your job to help me.
And that's, you know what, that's good leadership, because that's how leaders are. Leaders take on the role of, I serve you so you could be better
Exactly.
equipped
Because
for what you're
you're
doing. Yes.
you're the frontline worker.
Absolutely.
Like he's sitting in his office, fielding, government, parents, blah, blah, whatever. Keep all of that stuff away from me so I can do A's for Apple.
Yes.
That's why you hired me,
Amen.
or I can put on a musical or whatever. That's why you hired me, So anyhow, I would really like to, again, say to your listeners, reach out for help.
Yes.
My gosh,
That
reach
is
out
the
for
ultimate cry out for everyone. Just with anything, just reach out for help. Don't suffer in silence.
Yes.
Carolyn, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing that that word of advice, sharing how teachers are really going through, because no one talks about it. I don't hardly ever hear anyone talk about it, and they need they need to be able to relate to other people. So it's amazing, what you do, and I'm so grateful that you came on today, and I'm sure my listeners are happy to have heard this amazing podcast today. And I just want to say to the audience, thank you so much for listening. If you feel that this has been helpful, if you know a teacher who is struggling, send them this video, have them subscribe, and
Yes.
and come on to the channel, not just because it's me, but because I'm meeting some amazing people like Carolyn and others that has been on my show that offers so much help. And I just want to just say thank you so much for listening. Hope you have an amazing Monday. And
Yeah.
we just so grateful you have sat and listened. Thank you so much for listening. We are
And can I also say it? people would like to reach out to me and have a chat, if they want more information, they can contact me on my website, carolynborashypnotherapy.com. You can also email me, carolyn@carolynborashypnotherapy.com.
Thank you.
I'd
I will
I'd
also
love-
put that in the
Great.
video, all of your contact information, so that people can reach out and
Great.
know who to actually talk to. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. We are signing off.
It's your time to shine. Your journey to chart. Coach Rice wisdom will heal every heart. So join us now. Let's make life suffice. Welcome to Mondays with Coach Rice.